He was the kingmaker of late-night TV. 3 decades at the desk, 20,000 guests, a smile that made careers, and a silence that could end them. Johnny Carson didn't yell, he didn't feud publicly, but if you crossed him, you disappeared. This is the story of the silent blacklist Johnny Carson never admitted to, but everyone in Hollywood feared. In the golden age of American television, The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson wasn't just a talk show. It was a gatekeeper to fame. If you landed a spot with Johnny, your phone rang the next day. If he invited you to the couch after your stand-up set, your career changed overnight. Actors, comedians, singers, everyone wanted that invite. But the reverse was also true. If Johnny didn't like you, you were done. There was no public memo, just silence. And in Carson's world, silence was deadly. No story illustrates this better than Joan Rivers. Joan was more than just a guest. She was Carson's chosen one. She sat in as guest host more than 90 times. She was funny, loyal, and adored by Carson's audience. But in 1986, Fox came calling. They wanted Rivers to launch their new late-night show, the first woman ever to host a network talk show. She said yes, but here's the twist. She didn't tell Johnny first. She assumed the network would inform him. They didn't. And Johnny was furious. He never spoke to her again. Not a call, not a letter, not a word. He banned her from The Tonight Show, and the ban stuck. Even under Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien, Rivers was blacklisted, until Jimmy Fallon finally broke the curse in 2014. By then, Carson had been dead for nearly a decade. The grudge outlived the man. Then there was Rich Little, one of the most successful impressionists of the 1970s. Little could do anyone, presidents, actors, and Carson himself. And that was the problem. Audiences loved his Carson impression. Johnny, not so much. According to Little, Carson found the impression disrespectful and too accurate. Despite being a frequent guest and guest host, Little was abruptly dropped from the show in the early 80s. No warning, no explanation, just gone. Years later, Carson's longtime lawyer Henry Bushkin confirmed it. Nobody got under Johnny's skin more than Rich Little. In a town built on flattery, Johnny didn't like to be the punchline. Then there's the story of Wayne Newton, the velvet-voiced Vegas entertainer with a short fuse. Carson had been cracking jokes about Newton's masculinity, his appearance, and thinly veiled innuendo about his sexuality. At first, Newton ignored it. Then, he didn't. According to Newton, he stormed into NBC studios, marched straight into Carson's office, and said, "If you ever do that again, I will kick your ass." Newton later told interviewers, "I confronted Johnny, and the joke stopped." But so did the friendship.
I said to Mr. Carson, I said, "I don't know what friend of yours I've killed. I don't know what child of yours I've hurt. I don't know what food I've taken out of your mouth. But these jokes about me will stop, and they'll stop now, or I will kick your ass." He started to mumble, and I think he said something like, "Wayne, I'm your biggest fan." I said, "Don't give me that crap. Don't give me that."
Carson never featured him again, and Newton never forgot it. He would later call Carson a mean-spirited human being.
I'm going to say something I've never said on television, Mr. King. Johnny Carson was a mean-spirited human being.
Not every blacklisting made headlines. Some were subtle, quiet, but just as permanent. Ralph Nader, the consumer rights advocate, reportedly got on Carson's bad side after a controversial appearance. Too political, too disruptive. He was never asked back. Richard Ney, a former actor turned Wall Street critic, made waves with his blunt takes on corporate corruption during his appearances. Carson, who liked to keep things apolitical and breezy, wasn't interested in platforming economic revolution. Ney disappeared from the lineup. Even Chevy Chase, red hot from Saturday Night Live, barely got love from Carson. Industry insiders say Carson thought Chase was arrogant, smug, and not particularly funny. And Johnny didn't suffer fools, or egos bigger than his own. Here's the real question. Why didn't Johnny Carson ever admit to the blacklist? because he didn't need to. He didn't write angry letters. He didn't rant in interviews. He just made calls, or stopped making them. He understood the true currency of power in Hollywood isn't volume, it's access. And Carson controlled the biggest spotlight in America. To be ignored by him was worse than being mocked. It meant you were invisible. To some, that made him cruel. To others, it made him brilliant. Johnny Carson was funny, polished, and impossibly cool. But behind that effortless charm was a man who never forgot a betrayal and never forgave one. He didn't need an official blacklist. He was the blacklist. In a business where everyone wanted a seat on the couch, Johnny decided who got one and who never would again. What do you think? Was Johnny Carson protecting his legacy or letting his ego burn bridges? Let us know in the comments.